Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning. I know you've had a couple of very interesting sessions already, and Susan has just taken us through a world tour of the impact of associations. So now we're going to focus a little bit more intensely on the role of associations and governments working together. So quickly let me introduce myself and our panelists. I'm Nikki Walker, the Global Vice President of Association Management and Consulting with MCI, and I spent the last 20 plus years working with associations, helping them to grow globally, helping them to remain relevant, reinvent themselves, focus on innovation, deal with some of the challenges that Susan's just highlighted, and in all sectors and all industries. And I'm joined here this morning, and you'll also see that although we're talking about innovation, technology, I'm a real dinosaur, and I'm still using paper. So I'm joined here this morning by Dr. Samir Hamrouni, who's the CEO of the World Free Zones Organization, so a trade association headquartered here in Dubai, but with global remit. And of course, he's responsible for providing analytical assistance and advice on key strategy towards the chair of the association and helping to really build this new organization. But he's not alien at all to working with governments because he's been involved with government-based operations here in Dubai. Before setting up the World Free Zones Organization, Dr. Samir was senior advisor with Dubai Silicon and Oasis, which is a government-owned free zone. And he's also helped with the Economic Zones World at the DSO. And interestingly enough, because in this discussion where we're talking about the relationship with governments, he coordinated a multidisciplinary team with the Dubai Economic Development Department and the Dubai Executive Council called the Dubai Medium-Term Economic Plan 2012 to 2016. So Dr. Samir bridges both association and industry as well as government experience. So welcome, Dr. Samir.
Thank you.
And then I'm joined by Dr. Noah Radford, who's the Chief Operating Officer, Futurist-in-Chief, so we're going to be focusing very much on the future, at the Dubai Future Foundation and a former advisor on futures, foresight, and innovation in the UAE Prime Minister's office. Noah's helped establish Dubai, or the UAE's first national foresight unit, helped establish the Dubai Future Foundation and the Museum of the Future, and is part of a team that identifies emerging opportunities, develops strategic partnerships and prototypes, and future initiatives for the government. And he has a very long list of extremely interesting initiatives that he's been involved in. I'll highlight a couple. The Dubai 3D printing strategy, the Dubai self-driving vehicle strategy, and, fascinating, the Office of the Future, the world's first fully functional 3D printed building. So these two experts are going to take us through a journey together on how we really see collaboration between associations and governments here. And of course, those of you that are based in Europe or the USA, you'll know of a very established way of working, trade associations working to help regulation, to help influence policy, and also to really defend the industry and that they're representing. Here we're going to focus on Dubai's incredibly innovative view of the future, very fast-moving economy that we have here in the UAE, and how my two guests see the role of associations in helping to achieve the government's vision. So I'm going to start with Dr. Noah. So we're talking about government reforms, and we're talking about disruption, business disruption, etc. And you have the title of future. So when we're talking about future focus, what time span are we talking about? Is this like 6 months, 6 years? Can you give us a context of what does future innovation and focus look like?
Sure, yeah. Thank you for having me. Can everyone hear me?
You can hear okay?
No. So I'll just speak loudly. There,
okay, now you're on. Yeah, great.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. The question was the time scale. I mean, obviously there's no one answer for this. It very much depends on the industry or sector that we're talking about. But what's extraordinary about working here in the context of Dubai and the UAE is that whilst many of these technologies are rapidly approaching commercial application, or they could even be sold or applied now, often in other contexts the limiting factor is the regulations. and not just lack of regulation, but the right kind of regulation to support issues of arbitration and IP and dispute resolution and these kinds of things. So what we try to focus on is what are the technologies which are going to be fundamentally transforming our industries and sectors in the future. And all of the most important issues that we have to address in the next 10 to 20 years are heavily regulated industries. Certainly consumer is important, but the things that are most fundamental to managing the transition of the 21st century, education, healthcare, infrastructure, security, all of these things by nature are heavily regulated and in many cases involve lots of state-owned enterprise involvement. So it's important that government helps to facilitate exploration into what kind of experiments and approaches and business models and technologies are going to help us build the world that we want to build in these fundamental areas. So the question of timescale is really one of, well, how fast can government move, right? You have situations where technologies, take for example 3D printing in architecture and construction. It's when we were approached by, we formed a little industry group here trying to explore what impact will 3D printing and robotic construction have on the architecture and real estate industry. And to our surprise, a little joint venture was formed to build the first 3D printed building. I thought it was 3 to 5 years away before we'd start to see that level of application in the industry. And they approached us as a government body to say, would you support us in doing this? And this is one of those funny gray areas because it's like a pre-legal activity. It's not illegal, there just are no laws for it yet. So our job was to say, yeah, we will endorse you and give you a bit of sort of political cover to try this thing out. And in doing so, we built this building, which you can see is just in front of Emirates Towers, that helped us understand the questions we needed to ask in order to write the regulations necessary to support this emerging technology. And so that was something which we thought was 5, 10, 15 years away, but actually turned out that with the right partners and with the right support, you could do it today. Now, obviously, it's not going to be the final, I mean, I urge you to visit it, right? It's not going to be the final way that 3D printed buildings look or work, but it's a step in that direction. So we really believe that the future is going to be a lot less patient with us than today is, and we have to try to bring that forward as fast as possible, and things that we thought will be too long need to happen now.
So bringing forward as fast as possible, absolutely. And you've described a process of kind of testing, piloting, I think you used the terminology pre-legal. So Samir, let's build on that, because I think you can see clearly how industry associations can also partner with government bodies in that sort of pre-legal testing, piloting phase.
Thank you. Let me first of all add some
yes.
element to no observation, but first of all, I would like to express all my gratitude to Dubai Association Center. Thanks to them, we, newborn association and organization based in Dubai, we have been implemented, supported, and we have been growing exponentially. Another observation, I don't know why every time we want to speak about future, we bring young people. Thank you. People like me in my early 40, we still have at least 15 years of work, and we strongly believe that the future starts tomorrow. So yes, future, things big, but start step by step. What I would like to add on Noah is in few minutes, what is the 30 years of journey of Dubai with future and technology. 30 years ago, Dubai and UAE was 100% oil-based economy. Today, it's just 30%. So we started the journey with a huge effort of diversification. We look at outside, what is happening, we invested money, we invested a human, and we diversify our economy. I remember in 2009 and 10, Dubai went through a deep crisis. And I coordinated a team who elaborated a 3-year economic plan to sort out the crisis. And we went to His Highness and we asked him what kind of diversification we are looking for Dubai. And the answer was, we are not looking for a new economic sector. The diversification is to make the already 6 existing traditional sector, finance, trade, real estate, manufacturing, and tourism, making them more competitive, more innovative, and more tech-ready. So we started leading, not consuming. And lastly, and this is why perhaps our colleague Noha is having this job position, His Highness in February launched an initiative called Dubai 10X. And the concept of it is, let's do today, in 1 year, what others will do in 10 years. So we move it from consuming, from leading, to anticipating. So for us as a newborn association, but born here, we deeply believe that our role are two. One, we move it from the concept of community, member-oriented association, organization, you name it, professional or not, to the concept of the ecosystem. We cannot work in a closed aspect. So let me introduce my association. We are the association of free zones. Zones are territory that has been created in 165 countries to attract investors and to promote trade. So from the beginning, we said that our role, it is to improve the country capacity of exporting and trading. If we want to do it, we can never ever do it alone. We need governments, we need lawyers, we need researchers, we need chamber of commerce. So when we built this organization, we didn't build it as a simple community of the 2,500 free zones. We have 2,500 free zones in 165 countries. We employ 100 million persons, and we host 6 million companies. We said we will never succeed if our work is just a member work, a community work. The second, and this is where I will answer directly your question, association main role is not just lobbying, it's an anticipation exercise. If really we want to succeed, if really we want to deliver to support our member, anticipation is our major role. And this is where we reach governments. So governments have a lot of initiatives, have a lot of rules, regulation, not only the technological one, but also we can work together. We strongly believe that association is the best change lending platform. So if together we work, we test, this is where we can succeed.
So you talked about anticipation. So Noah, let me go back to you and just inquire, anticipating these innovations and changes, technology, disruptive technology, anticipating what is going to be coming. Dubai is, first class at this. From an association perspective, a business perspective, industry perspective, how do you see technology, what disruption do you see coming that's really going to impact industry and associations?
Yeah, so before I address some of the specific things we're paying attention to that I think would be interesting for your industries, there's something about the way that you anticipate that's important. Normally we think about this as this long, rigorous analytical strategy process of data analysis and projecting what might happen in the future. Whilst that certainly is possible, the truth of the matter is, we're living in an age right now where things that used to take 10 years are taking 1 year. And so there are already examples in other jurisdictions and other industries of what your industry is going to look like. Like, people are already doing it right now. It might be in a startup, or it might be in a garage, or it might be in a multinational company, or it might be in some sort of other parallel industry that is associated to yours. But actually, a lot of what our work is just trying to figure out what is happening now. So just taking a fresh lens of the present and say, what are the really interesting innovations that are happening now? And what happens if we just put that on fast forward for a little while and maybe mix that with this other thing that's happening in that industry? So I think that lens gets to the second point, which is like, you guys are the people that are doing the innovation in your industries, or at least overseeing the industry of the future. Now, you just might not recognize it yet. So, I would urge you that you, in terms of what it takes to anticipate the future, you have everything that you need, all of the ingredients already there with you, and by talking with each other here, you might be able to understand, okay, how is an impact that, say, computer vision, the ability for automated manufacturing, what does that technology mean when you put it into a car, right? And we'll suddenly start to have self-driving vehicles, and then what does that mean for the logistics industry, and what does that mean for the labor force, right? So it's just joining those dots up. So in that respect, some of the things that we pay attention to, there are kind of 3 broad categories that are general purpose technologies or sort of huge transformations that are going to take the next decade or so to reach maturity. The obvious one is automation, artificial intelligence, and robotics. We're at this very interesting inflection point now, and when people say AI, we get a lot of startup companies coming to us for investment and this kind of thing. I'm an AI company. Like really that just means numbers, right? That just means you take something that is a process, anything that can be written down, and you add some data to it, you put some refinement into it, and you just let it run. Right? So we're in a world where we have lots of data. 90% of all the data that's ever been created has been created in the last 2 years. And we have the processing power to make sense of it. So we're able to put things together now and say, well, what is the best way to get a package from Singapore to Kenya, right? So these sorts of questions are now rolling out at a level of maturity across all industries. But the interesting thing about that is now we're starting to see what the next generation of that looks like, and this is machines learning to learn. Right? So if you're still the person that has to write down not only the goal that the machine is supposed to follow, but also the way that it should do it, right, then we're still the man in the middle, as it were, human beings. And our existing business model, our existing approaches to how we think that should be done is constrained to us, which is not bad, right? But we're at this moment when people now say machine learning or artificial intelligence, what that means is you just say, I want to get in that direction, and the machine will experiment with thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of ways to do it, and it will teach itself how to accomplish that goal. What's exciting about that is that means we're going to be, it comes up with strategies and approaches which we could never conceive of. And you see this with, like, for example, Facebook there was a story about a year ago of teaching different computers how to speak to each other. So they invented a new language that was just a more effective way, and nobody could understand it. It was just machine-to-machine language. So this is important because that is going to fundamentally, cut a big knife of hot butter right through all of the labor force and the labor markets, and decimate employment globally. But also enable new things to be accomplished. So the big question we face on automation is not so much the specifics of, okay, how is a machine that learns to learn going to impact the shipping industry or the housing construction market or trade and finance, for example. It's what do we do once those things become mainstream and economic. So we focus a lot on that.
And in the what do we do is, when we were talking earlier, you're referring to the role of industry and the role of associations as representatives and conveners of industry. You mentioned that associations can really partner with government to sort of help reduce the risk for government, particularly here where we're moving very fast track. We're trying to innovate today what would take my homeland a lot longer. And so, Samir, in terms of associations' role in helping with these, slightly adventurous, innovative, potentially risk-orientated ventures, how do you see, for example, your own association or other associations partnering to sort of remove some of that risk, to help with the testing and the innovation?
I just said that association can be an excellent change lending platform. But at associations and in my organization, we believe that the most important disruption, not just 3D printing or automotive or these three elements, the most important disruption is where we will put human capital as the epicenter of our work. Yes, we will test all these technologies. We will test all these innovations. But what is in the society? In my role, I visited almost 63 countries. And I met with presidents of countries, ministers, CEO of multinationals, free zones, civil society, young entrepreneur. And I have been asked tons of questions as an association. I can summarize them in three. What is my major immediate challenge today? Second, what is my future? Third, what is in the society from what I'm doing? The answer to this question helped us to launch in 2016, with the presence of His Highness here, a program called the Free Zone of the Future. You name it, industrial zone, bank, whatever, the Free Zone of the Future. And the Free Zone of the Future program is based on three pillars. The answer to what is my major immediate challenge is quality. Association should improve the day-to-day work of our members, linking them with their ecosystem. What is my future innovation? And what is in the society for what I'm doing is sustainability. Quality, innovation, and sustainability is what helped us to develop this program called the Free Zone of the Future. Even we gave it a name, and we named it Prosperity. Here in the UAE, a few years ago, we launched the Ministry of Happiness. We have a minister taking care of our happiness. But in 99% of the countries, we are still in the development. So there is one step in the middle between development and happiness, and this is prosperity. The idea with development, you create wealth. With prosperity, you make this wealth shared with the population. So if we put, let's say, the humankind, the human capital as the epicenter, as our major disruption, we can help not only in lending these technologies, but we can make them useful for the humanity. And this is our measure. The program is called Prosperity, and even we gave it an Arabic name. We name it Izdihar, which means prosperity in Arabic.
Excellent. So we've also got very much the center of associations and human capital and the focus on skills and competencies, etc. So let's share with the audience, if you have, sort of parting thought of how do you see, practically speaking, associations and government, really working together in the future? Do you have a vision of what that should look like? Do we sit in task forces? Is it something that we're going to do around industry? What's your vision for that, Noah?
I mean, the short answer of how to work together is if you have any awesome ideas, bring them to me, and let's do them.
Right, okay.
Basically, that's our function, right?
Perfect.
There are many other activity sectors in Dubai government and state-owned industry that focus on the quality and the evolution of the industry. And our job is to look at, well, what's really next in the industry, and also what are the new industries that are coming. And the way we do that is by working with guys like you to say, what is the coolest thing we could think of possibly doing? Can we do that? Let's do it. We did it. What's next?
Perfect.
So,
Great.
open book.
Great
open
invitation. So please take him up on that. And Samir, yourself, seeing that, from a CEO point of view, you have a business to run. You mentioned, you have your members' interest to take care of. I think your comment about, not necessarily considering only the members, the community, the member organization, but the entire stakeholder group. But if you're talking to other CEOs, what's your sort of top recommendation for really being able to work closely with government?
We think that the period of association just built for lobbying is the past. Association should be supportive to government strategies, to government's policies. And let me give you an example of my association. So if I'm here to help the 6 million companies within the zones to export more, it's natural for me to sit with the government in order to improve the laws, right. To sit with the small and medium enterprises and the young entrepreneur to help them to do it better. It is natural for me to sit with the Dubai Chamber of Commerce. So from the day zero when we conceived our association, we opened the floor of membership to all our stakeholders. We have members that are zones. We have our first member that is not a free zone here globally is Dubai Chamber of Commerce. And these are not, this is a natural partner. We are partnering with the Customs Authority. We are partnering with all the ministries. So I think there is no way, this is a natural way somehow to succeed. And we teach governments and we learn from them. So for example, one of the most successful story of zones is what we call the single window. If you want to create a company, 20 years ago, you have to go to 20 departments. We created one single window in which you come to this window and you create a company. Today, governments are also implementing the single window strategy in which you as a citizens, you can approach the government just through one window. Another element, Dubai is considered one of the smartest cities in the world. So, and zones are small cities. We are working in government of Dubai to transform cities, zones, in smart zones. So collaboration is in both sense.
So we have collaboration, dialogue, sitting together, coming proactively towards government bodies with ideas, ideas coming from the government being tested with associations. Any other last-minute thoughts to share before we close?
I guess we're at this moment in history where the old world is dying exponentially and the new world is still being born exponentially. So we face at least 5 or 10 years of managing this transition of the old way of doing things and the new way of doing things being born. That's a tremendously scary experience. It's hopeful and exciting as well. So I think that in terms of helping your members and helping your industry kind of come to terms with the grief of the old way of doing things ending, right? As fast as you can do that, help them, mourn the old way, to get excited about the new way and experiment and figure out what the new way looks like, because no one knows, then the more effective you will be at serving them, and the more effective your industry will be in the future. So, a lot of this is about telling the story of the old way declining in a graceful, mature, emotional way, and then encouraging the excitement of the new way being born in a mature, responsible way as well. So I think it's just important to think that in the decade that we're transitioning through, it's going to get a lot more difficult, it's going to get a lot weirder, and you're in an interesting position to help tell that story for your industry and help link that up in a way which makes sense of it and alleviates some anxiety and actually builds hopeful stories for what we might be able to do tomorrow.
Thank you. And Samir, your closing comment.
We are a professional association, and the most important lesson learned in this, we are just 2.5 years organization, but we have been successful. Today we are in 82 countries, which is amazing in this short-term journey. We believe that our success is due to the fact that we base our work, our strategy in 3 elements. The association is to help and to improve the day-to-day work of the members, putting them in a global ecosystem. Second, we are helping them to assimilate and to absorb all the changes that are coming, anticipating all their needs. And third, we put society in as epicenter of our activities. Thanks to these 3 elements, we have been, I think, growing exponentially. Today we have 400 members, 82 countries, and I think we will continue with this growth.
So here we sum up the relationship between associations and government helps to anticipate. There's a learning and a teaching. There's an exchange of knowledge. There's a collaboration. Dialogue is absolutely essential. So with that, everybody, would you please join me in thanking our 2 panelists for their insights?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.